Hey guys, welcome to my video. My name's Brittany and recently I got married and I decided I want to make a video about all the things that I DIY'd for my wedding. If you're like me, I love doing crafts, and when it came time for me to get married, I was super excited to dive into all the things that I could do it myself to not only save money, but also kind of have a little bit of my personal touch on a lot of the decorations and things like that that I had at my wedding. So if you're interested in learning about all the things that I DIY'd at my wedding, keep on watching. And I'll be sure to timestamp in the description box below sort of all the different things that I cover, so you guys can reference this video back later if you want to take any of my ideas that I did. Hope you guys enjoy it. So I'm going to start with the very first thing that I DIY'd when it came to my wedding planning, and that was making my save the dates. These are what they looked like. I still have it hanging on my fridge today, but I wanted to share it with you guys because I really didn't want to break the bank when it came to making save the dates. Not only do people invest a lot of money in taking engagement pictures, but they also can invest a lot of money in printing save the dates as well as mailing them all the way out. So I wanted to share with you guys kind of the fun way that we did our engagement shoot. I'll pop a picture on the screen of what our save the date looked like so you guys can kind of see up close. But the pictures that we have in our save the date are actually taken using portrait mode on my iPhone. My husband and I didn't really want to do a full-on engagement photo session. We just needed a couple pictures for our save the date that we knew we could work with. So what I did was I brought my ring light, which I'm recording on right now, and my phone out to a park about 10 minutes from our house that was rural, and there weren't going to be a lot of people there. And we just set our camera up on a tripod, and I actually went out and bought one of those little Bluetooth remotes. So him and I just came with pretty typical poses, me on his back, us standing side by side, smiling, and one of us just had this little remote in our hand, and we would just click the button whenever we want to take a picture and just hope for the best that my phone had focus. One of the cute ideas I had with my save the date is I wanted to have some kind of sign that I could later edit in save the date in like chalkboard writing. So I just went out and bought a frame at the dollar store and put a black piece of construction paper in it. So whenever my husband and I posed for photos, him or I would be holding it up, just kind of posing with it. And then later when I went back to edit my save the date, I was able just to write in it with text, save the date, depending on what order I wanted it in. So in terms of all the graphics and everything, I use PicMonkey. I'll link them in the description box below. PicMonkey is sort of an easy way for you to design graphics or just kind of take a template of something and work from it. They have a lot of different text you can choose from, pictures, infographics, colors, you name it. One of the big things that I recommend if you are going to DIY your save the dates and invitations is buying one of those paper cutters. I'll insert a picture on the screen here. But I went out and bought one of these at Target for, I want to say it was like $15. And I was able to actually cut a lot of my prints using that photo cutter rather than bringing it to a printing company. So I recommend that for not only the save the dates, but also the invitations. So next, I'm gonna move on to probably the most time-consuming DIY of my whole wedding, and that was my centerpieces. So my Pinterest board was already filled with all of my inspiration for my wedding, and I really wanted sort of like a garden theme, if that makes sense. And I really like the look of lanterns, but I didn't want to go out and buy lanterns because even like the small ones that are about, let's say 2 feet tall or so, are actually pretty expensive depending on where you go. And I knew that I needed probably close to 30 of them based on how many people I knew were going to be coming to our wedding. So I did a little bit of research and I decided I'm going to make all the lanterns for my centerpieces. So let me tell you all the materials that I needed to do so. First, I went out and bought wood lath. I'm going to insert a picture of what that looks like because I never knew what it was before I did some research. Wood lath essentially is sort of a thin shaped scrap wood that you can buy in bundles at Home Depot. They kind of are like the length of a yardstick, but they have similar dimensions to like a paint stick, if that makes sense. So I did end up taking a quick little clip of what it looked like for me assembling my lanterns. I needed several pieces to create the base, several pieces to create the top, and then I had to create little pieces for the 4 columns. I didn't fill them with glass or anything like that. And then what I did was I cut all the pieces to length using one of those pull down saws. I had other people helping me with this because you really want an assembly line when it comes to making centerpieces. But once we cut all the different pieces, then stained them all. So I just went out and bought a small thing of stain. I think we went through 2 small pint size of stain that was relatively cheap at Home Depot for all of them. I I stained all the pieces individually, and then I tried to hot glue them together. Unfortunately, the hot glue didn't hold up the way I wanted it to. Even the heavy-duty Gorilla hot glue didn't hold the wood lanterns together. So we ended up having to individually nail all of them, which is something I really didn't want to do, but the good news was I didn't have to spend any extra money, just spend a lot of extra time. They turned out really good though, although they were extremely flimsy, and I actually didn't even save any of them to bring home just because I knew that they weren't gonna last long. They looked really pretty, and I'll insert some pictures on the screen here so you guys can see them. But essentially we had the lanterns in the middle for our centerpieces, and then I went out and got a bunch of pillar candles with glass candle holders. And then to complete the centerpieces, I filled our tables with different types of silver dollar eucalyptus greenery. And then I had a couple little different decorations too, which I'll show you guys. In addition to the lanterns as my centerpieces, I also went out and bought a bunch of mercury glass candle holders and little battery powered tea lights to go in them. I highly recommend doing your research on saving some money with the tea light holders. I was able to find some that ran about, each holder was $1 a piece. You can get these at the dollar store sometimes, but they're plastic. These ones are actually glass. And then I also had some larger size ones that were scattered throughout larger tables. The table members I want to mention, I also DIY'd. These little clear acrylic picture frames I got at the dollar store, $1 a piece. And then all I did was printed out cardstock with some nice calligraphy writing on it and then slipped it in as if it was a photo, and I was easily able to place it at each table. I've been in a ton of weddings where it's impossible to read the table numbers because of people trying to be really artistic with different colors and different types of materials that they put their table numbers on, but I felt like the black and white writing was the easiest to read and it was really simple for people to find their table. Now I didn't just use the wood lath for just my lanterns, I also use it for a couple of different things. The first thing I want to show you guys is an order of events sign. I highly recommend this to anyone who's planning a wedding because it does really help just keep guests aligned with what's happening during the day besides just printing it in your program. So I'll put in a picture on the screen here, but essentially I took a bunch of those pieces of wood lath and laid them out and then hot glued them together to kind of create separate different pieces, and then I nailed them onto more of a sturdy plank piece of scrap wood that I found in my father-in-law's garage. And then I just wrote in white paint marker all the different events that were going to be happening at my wedding, and I waited until the day before the wedding to draw any of the arrows on just to make sure that I knew where I was going to place the sign. And then as a way to hold that sign up, I went out and got a couple of these tall sort of tin buckets. I actually used 2 of these to store sparklers in, but this one I filled with sand and then just stuck that stake of the stick that I used into this bucket to kind of hold it up, so it sort of had that rustic farmhouse theme. A couple of other things I used the wood lath for was making reserved seating signs. I hot glued 2 of the pieces together and then just stapled a piece of rope onto the back of it, and then just in white paint marker wrote reserved, and we were able to hang this on the garden chairs at my wedding. Probably my most favorite thing that I used the wood lath for was my welcome sign. I'm gonna put a picture on the screen here for you guys, but we used wood glue for this specific project using the wood lath. I really wanted sort of a palette looking type of sign, but I didn't have the chance to go out and buy a palette or find a palette for that matter. So I'm gonna go grab it for you guys because I still have it here. So I hope you guys can see. All these individual panels are the wood lath, and then on the back, I just had some vertical panels go all the way down. This string wasn't there. I went out and got this to hang up in my house later. And then in terms of writing on this sign, I really want to give you guys some tips and tricks on how to write large letters like this on a sign. So what I'm gonna do is lay this down here. What I ended up doing was I went out and got graphite paper. I highly recommend investing in this. It's pretty cheap and you can reuse sheets multiple times. But what it allows you to do is if you have an image, for example, that you want to transfer onto your project, you're able to either print it out or draw it from freehand and make it look really nice. Put the graphite paper down first and then your design on top. And then if you trace over it with a pencil or any sort of hard sort of tool, the graphite, when you lift the pieces of paper up, will leave a small imprint on your project. So then after that, what I did was I just went over it with that white paint marker, and that was good. In reference to the welcome sign, I did want to show you guys some of the faux flower arrangements that I made because I really didn't want to spend a lot of money on real florals. So I want to show you guys, I still have left over the topper for my welcome sign, and you probably saw it in the picture that I showed you guys earlier. But essentially all these flowers are fake. I went out to Michael's and I highly recommend getting their mobile app because not only can you look at their weekly ads, but you can also use a coupon almost every time you go there. And floral is definitely something that they have on sale quite regularly. So keep your eye out for that if you want to save some money. But what I needed was a way to mount my floral arrangement on top of my sign. So I'm going to show you guys the back here as best as I can. But on the back you can see I have just a circle piece of floral foam and all of my pieces kind of stuck into it. But you can see there's this little sort of white hook that's hanging off of it. I bought these hooks individually at Hobby Lobby, and I'll see if I can link them for you guys in their floral section. And I had to kind of find a way to lodge it into this floral foam so that it would stay, and then that way when I had my sign, I can just sort of hook it onto the back of it and it would hold up. I also made 2 individual faux floral arrangements that are a little bit smaller using some of the same sort of pieces of flowers, the eucalyptus, the white and blush tones of flowers, and then again they have those little hooks on the back. And I put these on my seating chart, which I'll tell you guys about next. So I'll throw a picture of my seating chart on the screen, but you guys can see that we had 24 tables of people at our wedding, and each table held close to 10 people per table. So it was a lot of people, and I wanted to find a way that was not only visually appealing, but also really easy for people to find their seat. So I envisioned going out and getting a large piece of wood, and I wanted to keep it as cheap as possible. So at Home Depot I found this really cheap thin, it was actually already colored this dark brown color backing, and used that and had them cut it for me to size, so I had 2 pieces at the end of it. It has sort of a smooth finish on one side and then it had a rough finish on the back side. I'll try and link it in the description box below what type of wood it actually was. While it was beneficial because I didn't have to stain it initially, getting the font to actually stay on it was really hard. I did use the paint markers, and that's where I did a lot of experimenting. I used both the oil base and water base, and it really came off still looking pretty sheer. So I did end up going over all my text with just white acrylic paint to touch it up. But I evenly spaced out each table number, and then I just took twine string and individually nailed each piece of twine string onto the board, and then with mini clothespins I was able to clothespin everybody's place card to their assigned table number. So what I did for the place cards is I actually just went and found a business card template on the Avery website, and I was able to actually import my spreadsheet of my guest list onto the Avery website to create what would be a business card, although it was a place card, and it listed everyone's first and last name and the meal that they chose for my wedding because we decided to do a planned meal place setting. So when my guests came by, they were able to kind of look at the whole board visually and try and find their name. And when they did find their name, they would take it off with the clothespin, hold on to their place card, and then go in. When they would sit down at their table, they had a little place card holder for them to put their place card in. Now, one big tip that I recommend to you if you are planning your own wedding when it comes to your guest list is you have to keep in mind there will be people who will show up to your wedding who didn't RSVP. So I want to show you guys a sign that I made that was really helpful for some folks who did show up but maybe forgot to let me know that they were coming. So right next to my 2 seating charts was this large sign that says, "Can't find your name? We're still glad you came. You can be seated at table 25. And my husband and I did end up paying for a couple additional plates just as just in case for our wedding. If it's buffet style, you guys don't have to worry about that. But that way, additional folks have at least a table to sit at during dinner if they ended up feeling not included. So I recommend that definitely for you. I also wanted to mention the last sort of faux floral arrangement that I made. I don't have a super good picture of it, and I don't have them anymore. Our wedding venue already had a pergola in place, so I didn't have to worry about making an arch or anything like that. But I did want to decorate the pergola a little bit just to give it a little bit more personality. So I went out and bought wall fabric. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'll spell it in the description box below for you guys, V-O-I-L-E. But essentially that's a type of fabric that I use for my drape, and I got it in a really long length. I went out and measured, but I wanted a way to kind of tie back the drapes so they weren't completely blowing in the wind if it was a windy day. At Hobby Lobby I found these floral arrangement holders where you're able to sort of stick hollow faux flowers into each little spike, and then you're able to just attach ribbon to it, and I tied it back. So I'll link those for you guys down below so you can check them out. Now let's get into the florals. I had no idea how expensive florals are for weddings, and I had a close budget about 400 bucks that I basically used for my personal bouquet and all the boutonnieres for our groomsmen. I had a little bit of leftover, but I want to find a way to DIY all of my bridesmaids bouquets and make them match the bouquet that I was having professionally done by a florist. So depending on the inspiration photos I sent to my florist, I did some research and found a way to buy wholesale flowers to create wedding bouquets that matched a lot of the same blooms and stems that I had requested for my professional bouquet. So through some YouTubers that I found, I was able to get connected with Petal Driven, which is an online company that you can go out and buy bulk flowers, and you can use them for events or I guess just for fun or recreation. But I ended up picking out some of the cheapest blooms that I could find, them being carnations or baby's breath, a couple of smaller like tiny mini roses, and I had just enough to fill my bridesmaids bouquets, but I really wanted to have a lot of eucalyptus at my wedding, which I remember saying earlier in this video. Eucalyptus is really expensive, and what they ended up offering on Petal Driven was a giant assortment of eucalyptus box. I want to say it was close to $300, but we had so much of it left over. We had silver dollar eucalyptus, blue eucalyptus, seeded eucalyptus, and then an additional eucalyptus that looked kind of grassy. So the silver dollar eucalyptus, I'll show you guys in that picture again, we used for my centerpieces as well as my bridesmaids use them in their bouquets. The seeded eucalyptus was kind of mixed in with the bouquets and spread out throughout my venue. And making the bouquets is actually super fun to do with my bridesmaids the night before my wedding. I had all the florals get shipped into my house the Wednesday before my wedding, and my wedding was on a Saturday. I unpacked them on Wednesday. On Friday night, my girlfriends came over to my dad's house. We made bouquets together. And then Friday evening, we went over to my event venue and just set up all the greenery wherever we could find a place for it. So that's where a lot of the fun sort of last minute decorations came into play. We used the greenery to decorate the head table, which I'll show you guys images of here. We laid it all on the head table, including some of those different mercury glass votives. I had a couple of additional lanterns that I went out and bought at thrift stores that I found to kind of create sort of a lantern twinkling lights effect. At the base of the head table, you guys can see where my husband and I are sitting. My bridesmaids and I decorated it with a bunch of greens, and then even had a couple of those little corded mini lights that you can find that are battery powered, just to make it a little bit more enchanting looking. So besides just the head table, we also wanted to add sort of greenery and life to all the different cocktail tables and different staging areas of my wedding. So I actually had this huge bulk size of mason jars, and we just cut little pieces of the eucalyptus and dipped them into the mason jars. I'll show you guys a couple of images of them here. For aisle runners, I wanted a way to sort of decorate the aisles of my outdoor wedding space. So I went out and bought these buckets at the dollar store. Fun fact, you can buy things online at the dollar store that you might not find in the store, and you can buy them in multiple quantities. So these buckets are $1 a piece. They already have the rope on them, and I bought about 25 of them. And my bridesmaids just took all the leftover florals, whether it be greenery or just different blooms that I had that we didn't use for the bouquets, and assorted them into these buckets and laid them out all along my aisles, and it looked so pretty. And then I did want to mention that one of the cutest DIYs that I did was created crowns for my flower girls. As I mentioned, baby's breath is probably one of the cheapest types of flowers that you can buy, and I wanted to find something cute to do with it. I followed a YouTube tutorial and learned how to make baby's breath crowns for my flower girls. So using the baby's breath flowers, I cut off individual tiny stems and then wound them around a wire using floral tape, attached a ribbon to it, and then let the mom size the size of the crown to their daughter's heads, and they looked so cute. I'll insert a picture on the screen for you guys. But overall, we still had flowers left over for my wedding, and I really thought it was worth it to go with Petal Driven versus going through a bigger florist. I really enjoyed how everything floral-wise turned out. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to mention was our DIY photo booth. And this is another thing I was super excited about and wanted to share with you guys. I don't know if you've done the research, but I know that renting a photo booth for any kind of event can be really expensive. And most of the time you need to have someone be there to monitor the photo booth and make sure it's running properly. I really want to give my guests a way to take pictures and then be able to directly send it to themselves and save the images for themselves rather than printing them out. I've never really been a huge fan of printing out photo booth photos because frankly I never really know what to do with the prints afterwards. I'd rather just put them on social media, to be honest with you. So I did some digging, and the first thing that I wanted to share that I came up with was an app that I found on my iPad. So all I needed to do was have a well-lit space and a backdrop for a photo booth. So I have a ring light already, which did come in handy, but if you guys wanted to buy one, they're only about $100 on Amazon, and you can definitely use them for future things. So I already had that in place, and then I already owned an iPad. So I downloaded the app called Mumma Booth. So Mumma Booth, it does cost about $20 to install the app. It's a subscription basically. So it's a $20 subscription per month. It's designed for business owners who travel along and do photo booths at different events. But I just went ahead and after I used it for my wedding, I unsubscribed, and that way I'm not continuously paying for it. $20 isn't that bad though, in my opinion. And you get to completely design it from scratch. So it has an option where you can choose your print layout, so you can move around where you want the pictures to be. You can decide how many photos you want to be taken. You can decide what options you have. So you can do a photo, you can have them make a GIF, you can have them do a boomerang or capture a video. You can also just have them set it up where at the very end of the picture taking, you can click a button and you can either email it or text it to you. And our guests loved this idea. They can just walk up to the iPad, hit a button, have the photos be taken, and they can do it as many times as they wanted. But besides just the iPad and ring light, I also needed to create a backdrop. So I'm gonna insert the picture of the dimensions of the backdrop that I went off of, but essentially I just went out and bought a bunch of PVC pipes. These are really cheap at Home Depot, and I didn't even feel like it was necessary to stain them or anything like that. We cut them to size. You can just use a regular handsaw to cut these, and then I put them together to form the frame. And then I went out and bought fabric. So I wanted something that was a little bit glitzy and glamorous, but fell really nicely. And this fabric actually has a little bit of a stretch to it. I just went around Joann's and found something that was relatively cheap. But you guys can see here, it's slightly sheer. I just went ahead and sewed, I folded it over, sewed a little hem onto it so that I could easily slide it onto the PVC pipe, and it was really easy to assemble and set up. On the photo booth itself, I was nervous about some people understanding how to use the iPad app, so I just put this little piece of paper hanging from the tripod or hanging from the ring light that says photo booth info, and then on the back it tells you how to take the picture or how to take a boomerang, and then if for whatever reason my iPad locked itself or something like that, I was able to give them the lock code so they could unlock it and use it again. And then to top it all off, our photo booth had to have some kind of props. And I thought that a really cool way to make props that was affordable and personalized was to create little thought bubbles. So a couple of the ones that we had here that were kind of generic was like a photo bomb, or this one is someone thinking I'm here for the beer. This one even, it's holding up pointing at you saying you're the designated drinker. But these are all really, really cheap, easy ways for me to create props. And we had signs sitting out next to our props that said, share a thought or coin a phrase, because these are Mike and Brittany's favorite sayings. So we really personalized it by putting some things into our little thought bubbles that are things that him and I say a lot, or just inside jokes that we have with friends. One of the other DIYs that I had in my wedding, which is a really great option for those of you who maybe don't want to hire a videographer, but still want to have some sort of video captured at your wedding, is I had a GoPro checkout station. Now obviously you need a GoPro to do this, but I decided to have little cocktail tables sitting in the back of my venue space with my GoPro sitting on it with an extendable selfie stick on it, and a little sign next to it that said GoPro checkout. And it had all the instructions of how to use the GoPro, how to start a recording, how to end it, but it prompted our guests to record a message or just take the GoPro out onto the dance floor with their friends and share some memories with us. It was super fun to look back on the recordings later, and I highly recommend doing it for anyone who might be considering something like that for their wedding, because it really just adds a little bit of a behind the scenes of your wedding that you might not even know went down at your wedding, that now you can kind of experience and share that fun with your guests. So that was a really fun sort of DIY that I had there as well. In terms of some of the accessories that we had on my wedding day, I did DIY a couple of those too. The first thing being the robe that I wore to get ready in. Now I did go on Etsy and buy all my bridesmaids matching robes, but I wanted a white robe for myself too. And the robe itself was actually given to me by my mom for Christmas when she found out that I got engaged. But I wanted to make it just look a little bit more elegant, a little bit more glamorous, and match my bridesmaids' robes even a little bit better. So what I did was I went to Joann Fabric and made sure I had a coupon with me and went out and bought some really pretty lace trim and then sewed on the trim along the edges and along the sleeves of my robe to just make it look really elegant and unique. And then the last two things that were kind of finishing touches at our wedding were just some ideas that I thought would help be interactive with our guests and just give our guests something to do throughout the night if dancing wasn't their thing or if they got done with their meal really early, wanted people to be entertained. So the first thing was a candy bar. I had seen this at other weddings and loved it, but I know that most venues, if they want you to do a candy bar, they really upcharge you. It can just be a little too extravagant. So I went to the dollar store and bought a bunch of different types of jars, each $1 a piece, of course. And then the 3 larger jars I did buy at Walmart. I think the largest one was about $10 and the medium-sized ones were about $6 a piece. So pretty cheap for the jars. And then I just went out and bought little scoops that I found in the party section at Hobby Lobby. And if you're really thinking ahead, I recommend buying your candy after Halloween because Lord knows candy is super cheap in bulk after Halloween or any kind of holiday. And I do recommend making sure that you get candy that is wrapped. I know that certain wedding venues will charge you for having loose candies, which I had at my wedding and kind of regret now because there's a chance that those could fall on the floor and cause staining in the carpet. So be mindful of that if you want to avoid any sort of charges afterwards, but it's a really easy way to create a candy bar and just have little small plastic Dixie cups available for people to scoop their candy into. And then we had one last thing right next to the candy bar that was just for the kids. I went over and grabbed the sign that we had sitting next to this little station, but it was a station for the kids to make a card for the bride and groom. So I already had a box of crayons here at home and I went out and bought some stickers at the dollar store and just really plain old computer paper. And I set out some paper and crayons and stickers for kids to just create a card for the bride and groom, and it was again something really cute that we gotta go look back on after our wedding. It was just some fun little drawings and silly things like that from folks. So super easy thing to DIY and just another easy way to entertain your guests. That's pretty simple. But with that being said, that was the last of the DIYs that I did for my wedding. So I hope you guys enjoyed this long video. If you're like me, you might have taken some inspiration from this video for your own wedding if you're planning your own, and I hope some of my tips just help you in your wedding planning process. If you guys had any questions about the things that I've mentioned in this video, feel free to visit the description box below as I'll be linking a lot of things and websites on there. But in addition, feel free to DM me and ask me any questions that you might have. I can definitely give you guys some tips and pointers that I learned along the way, but planning my wedding was probably one of the most fun things I've ever done, and although at times it can seem a little stressful with my to-do list seeming like it's never getting shorter, it was just so much fun knowing that this is the only time I'm ever going to be able to plan an event like this, and my guests just seemed to love every piece of it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more of my content, I occasionally will upload DIY videos here and there, especially now that I moved into a new home. So if you'd like to subscribe to my channel, you're more than welcome to do so, and like this video to let me know that you enjoyed it. Thanks you guys for watching.